Hello and a very good evening and welcome to the news live on Channel I.
I'm Shanika Pereira.
And I'm Faisal Bongso. We begin with the headlines of tonight's news. The leaders of Sri Lanka and China have held bilateral talks. The former foreign minister says that China gave a decisive support for defeating terrorism in Sri Lanka. It has been alleged that there is an organized movement within the UN Human Rights Council against Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is on top in political stability amongst Commonwealth countries. The Met Department has apologized to the nation for naming the cyclone as Mahasen. Russia has decided to provide missiles to Syria. And moving on to the news in detail, President Mahinda Rajapaksa's bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping has been highly successful. China has agreed to invest in Sri Lanka's several highways and expressways, including the Northern Expressway road networks and railway lines, and in many other projects. As part of the proposed Colombo-Jaffna Expressway, the Chinese government will provide assistance for developing Colombo-Kandy-Kurunegala Expressway and also for extending the Southern Expressway from Mathura to Katharagama. President Mahinda Rajapaksa has thanked the Chinese president for China's continued support to Sri Lanka in all spheres. The president has said that his visit to China has helped to gain a deep and profound understanding of China's political, economic and social dynamics, and he looks forward to working closely with the new administration of President Jinping. The two leaders have also discussed trade and tourism and have signed an agreement to establish two committees that would work towards a free trade agreement. This agreement would give Sri Lankan products such as apparel, gems and jewelry, tea and rubber wider access in the Chinese market. In the area of tourism, the two countries have agreed to work towards the goal of attracting 100,000 Chinese tourists to Sri Lanka by the year 2015.
Development was facilities, the jobs. So everybody actually, we are very happy for a number of other.
China has also pledged support for a number of other projects which include water supply schemes in Attanagala, Minuwangoda and Kurunegala, an international conference hall in Kandy, an arts theatre in Anuradhapura and the development of national hospitals in Colombo and Ragama. The Chinese First Lady, Madam Ping Li-yuang, said that the service being done by Sri Lanka's First Lady, Madam Shuranti Rajapaksa, for the children and women of Sri Lanka is exemplary for the whole world. And China has also commended the Sirilia Sevena project started by the First Lady to help the children who have lost their parents due to the terrorist war. The meeting between the two First Ladies was held in the Chinese capital, Beijing. Minister of External Affairs, Professor G.L. Peris, monitoring MP for the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Sajin Vaskunawardena, Minister Bimal Veeravansa and Minister Douglas Devananda, parliamentarians H.M. Asbar and Namal Rajapaksa, Secretary to the President Lalit Veeratunga, Secretary to the Ministry of Finance Dr. P.B. Jasundara, Chief of the Presidential Staff Gamini Senarath and Sri Lanka's Ambassador in China Ranjit Uyangoda participated in these meetings.
The former Foreign Minister Rohit Boglagama said that China provided a decisive support in defeating terrorism in Sri Lanka. He said that when certain Western countries did not help Sri Lanka, China came forward to offer military assistance. President Mahinda Rajapaksa made a visit to China when the humanitarian operation was on. At that moment, the former Chinese President Hu Jintao agreed to provide fullest assistance to Sri Lanka. He said that China, which has the largest army in the world, providing assistance to Sri Lanka in its war is very significant. He said that China, with its 2.3 million armed forces at present, is the strongest military country in the world. China, which possesses nuclear power, has also manufactured intercontinental missiles. China also possesses the world's most powerful attack aircrafts. China, which has achieved rapid progress in arms manufacturing, is at present selling arms even to Western countries. China has entered the history of displaying its military power at the time of the invasion of Tibet and the wars of Korea and Vietnam. The former Foreign Minister said that it is profitable for Sri Lanka to have close relationships with China in development and in stability. Former Foreign Minister Rohit Boglagam said that we cannot forget the special assistance received from China between 2007 and 2009. This assistance helped everyone in Sri Lanka to enhance the economic unity and cooperation. He said that the assistance given by China helped enhance the economic status of the people of this country.
And in other news, Minister Dallas Alha-Perumal said that Sri Lanka is in the lead of having political stability within Commonwealth countries. He said that the Commonwealth countries should be proud of selecting Sri Lanka as the country for holding the next Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The Commonwealth is an international organization consisting of 54 independent countries. Except Mozambique and Rwanda, all the other countries were colonies of former British imperialism. In the main countries that belong to the Commonwealth, they have a Westminster model ruling, and the objective of the Westminster model is to maintain political stability and to ensure a strong ruling system. India, which is a population of 1,200 million people, is being ruled by an alliance of 18 political parties. Several main partners of this alliance resigned recently. In the United Kingdom, the government today is an alliance of Conservative and Liberal Democratic parties. Canada, which also belongs to the Westminster model, failed to establish a stable government continuously in 3 elections, and Canada is ruled by a minority party. And due to the failure to obtain majority power in the last elections in New Zealand, it is also facing instability. Even in Australia, a minority government has been established due to the tough competition that exists between the 2 main parties. Although the main countries with Westminster administration system have faced instability, there is a strong democratic government in Sri Lanka. The ruling United People's Freedom Alliance was able to win with a massive mandate at all the presidential elections, the general elections, the provincial council elections, and the elections for the local government institutions since 2005. Minister Dallas Alha-Perumal said that the main challenge that is being posed to the Commonwealth network of countries is that there is no stable governing situation among the Commonwealth countries, and he said that this situation cannot be accepted. He further added that in Sri Lanka there is a government in which there is no challenge. In this connection, he said the Commonwealth countries can be satisfied on decisions taken to hold the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Sri Lanka. He said that this decision was taken by the Commonwealth Youth Conference, the Commonwealth Business Forum and other organizations, and the minister added that all Commonwealth countries can benefit from these decisions that will be taken at the Commonwealth Heads of Government Conference that will be held in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the United Nations Human Rights Council, Ravinath Arya-Singh, has said that there is an organized movement within the UNHRC Council in Geneva against Sri Lanka. He said that there is a close relationship between the countries that supported the UNHRC resolution against Sri Lanka and the members of the anti-Sri Lankan Tamil diaspora. The Sri Lankan representative Ravinath Arya-Singh delivered a special lecture at the UNHRC Council yesterday. He said that it is regrettable to note that the UNHRC Council resolution is being used to attain global objectives of certain countries. Mr. Arya-Singh said that 1 week after defeating the Tiger terrorists militarily, the Human Rights Council launched a program against Sri Lanka. Mr. Arya-Singh expressed his displeasure of allowing the members of anti-Sri Lankan diaspora elements to participate as representatives of the UNHRC. He said that the government has taken several steps to ensure human rights after defeating terrorism militarily. Mr. Ravinath Arya-Singh said that in the rehabilitation of former LTTE cadres, resettlement of displaced people, and in the implementation of LLRC recommendations, the Sri Lankan government has made a rapid progress.
You're watching the news live on Channel I. We continue with news at home. 2 water supply projects established at a cost of 2,120 million rupees were commissioned by Minister Basil Rajapaksa in Kilinochchi today. 7,000 families will benefit from these projects. 1,920 million rupees have been spent for the construction of the Mallavi water supply project. The project will provide water supply to people in Tulukkal, Mallavi, Yogapuram, Anichankulam, Tilakkandal and Tirunagar. The water supply network covers 31 kilometers and it will benefit 4,500 families. The Ministry of Economic Development provided financial assistance for the project. Minister Basil Rajapaksa said that the President is not serving the people with the objective of getting their votes. He said that they, as well as the President, are considerate of all the people, wherever they are and in any part they live, and they are considered as brotherly citizens of this country. The minister said that more than 85% of the loans obtained by the government during the recent years have been spent for providing facilities to the people of the North. He wanted the people to recall whether they should give the pen and pencil with textbooks to the children and send them to schools, or whether they should hang the cyanide capsule in their necks and send them to the war front. More than 200 million rupees have been spent for the implementation of the Pandian Kulam water supply project. The project will benefit more than 2,000 families, and this project was vested with the people by the Governor of the Northern Province, Major General G.A. Chandrasiri.
The Met Department apologizes for using the name of Masen for a cyclone. The Director General of the department, S.H. Karyavasam, said that this name was not used with an objective to discredit the glorious name of King Masen or to degrade the history of Sri Lanka. Mr. Karyavasam made these observations at a media conference held in Colombo today. The department has handed over a letter of apology to the National Movement for Protection of Local Irrigation Culture, Venerable Kumrugamwe Vajirathero. The Met departments of the area have obtained names for the cyclones that develop in the region. These names were obtained in the year 2000 and 2011. The names given in this manner has been utilized from the year 2004. The Director General of the Met Department said that the name Mahasen is one of the 23 names proposed by the department. S.H. Karyavasam, Director General of the Met Department, said that if there was any dishonor and disrespect as well as damage been caused to King Mahasen by naming the cyclone under his name, the department apologizes to everyone in this country for the mistake done. He said they have already announced this in writing.
And the Canadian Daily National Post says that Canadian government is involved in an anti-Sri Lankan propaganda program with the objective of achieving petty internal political advantage. The newspaper points out that due to the stance being taken by the Canadian government about the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting to be held in Sri Lanka, Canada has been isolated amongst the Commonwealth countries. The Canadian National Post has written a long article criticizing a statement made by the Canadian Foreign Minister John Wade about the Commonwealth Heads of meeting to be held in Sri Lanka. The article has been written by the former Canadian High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, Martin Collicott, who served in Sri Lanka during the period of starting LTT terrorism in the country in the year 1983. It is only Canada that has presented an alternative opinion about holding the Commonwealth Summit in Sri Lanka. Britain, Australia and New Zealand and other Commonwealth countries have supported holding the meeting in Sri Lanka. Canada is the country in which a large population of Tamil people other than South Asia is living. The National Post points out that among the Sri Lanka Tamil diaspora in Canada, the most active groups are those supporting the LTT terrorists and those who support separatism in Sri Lanka. The newspaper points out that the Canadian political parties have become dependent on the votes of the Tamil diaspora and their financial assistance. Mr. Martin Collicott has pointed out that although Britain and the United States decided to proscribe the Tiger terrorist organization, the Canadian government delayed it deliberately. Therefore, it has been questioned about the moral rights of the Canadian government to make recommendations to Sri Lanka about human rights. And the National Post also reminds that countries such as Canada are not accusing the Tiger terrorist organization, which used several 100,000 innocent Tamils as human shields during the last stages of the war.
The Rice Dhansala organized by the Temple Trees for the third year will end tomorrow. This has been organized in line with the Buddha Rashmi Vesak zone of Ganga Ramen. Facilities have been made for all those who visit the Dhansala. A large crowd of devotees attended the Dhansala yesterday.
Yet on Vesak 3 Vesak zones of RupEng-News will be held today as well. And there was a large crowd visiting Vesak zones yesterday as well. The Puja Vesak zone organized by the Dehiwala Mount Auburnea Municipal Council will end today. It was organized for the 6th year. And the Dehiwala Vesak zone will also end today. It was organized jointly by the Venerable L.A. Gunavan Sathera and the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development. The members of the security services personnel presented their innovations at this Vesak zone. And the Gampala Vesak zone will also end today. There are 6 pandals and several lanterns in this Vesak zone. As a part of this Vesak zone, the hair relics of Lord Buddha brought from Bangladesh will be in exposition at the Ratnagara Viharya at this Vesak zone. Meanwhile, the staff of National RupEng-News Corporation organized a bread dansala this morning. A large crowd attended the dansala.
The third day of the SAARC Region Human Resources Development Workshop was opened in Colombo today. The theme of the conference was State and Private Sector Cooperation in Skill Development. The SAARC Human Resources Development Center said that out of the annual workshops held by the organization, this is the first workshop that received the successful participation of all SAARC countries. Accordingly, 18 members from 8 SAARC countries and foreign representatives from 8 countries attended the workshop. It was decided at the 2012 SAARC Human Resources Development Workshop held in Bangladesh to hold this year's conference in Sri Lanka. This year's conference has been jointly organized by national educational institutions and by the Human Resources Development Center in Islamabad. This year's conference is focusing special attention on regional experiences in the improvement of skill development in SAARC countries and to identify new mechanisms in this connection. The conference will discuss whether in the introduction of new technologies in the educational sector of Sri Lanka, it can be utilized for public and private sector joint projects. Mr. Bandul Gunawardena, the monitoring MP of the Ministry of Education, Mohanlal Guerrero, and regional ambassadors of SAARC countries in Sri Lanka attended the function.
After establishing peace, Sri Lankan government has very clearly understood the urgent need for education and skills development in order to achieve economic development in the country. His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa's vision for Sri Lanka is very clear. We are determined to make Sri Lanka the knowledge hub in the region.
And with that, we go in for a short break. Foreign news is coming up next.
Welcome back. You're watching the news live on RupEng-News. We now move on to news overseas. Russia says it will go ahead with deliveries of S-300 anti-aircraft missiles to Syria and that the arms will help deter foreign intervention. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said the missiles were a stabilizing factor that could dissuade some hotheads from entering the conflict. Russia also criticized a decision by the EU not to renew an arms embargo on the Syrian opposition. Russia's envoy to NATO, Alexander Gerishko, said Moscow was acting fully within the framework of international law in delivering the arms. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon said the Russian missile systems had not yet left Russia. Russia has repeatedly blocked efforts to put more pressure on Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Along with the US, it has been leading efforts to organizing an international peace conference on Syria next month.
A quarter of the world's children are at risk of underperforming at school because of chronic malnutrition. Missing out on a nutritious diet could severely damage a child's ability to read and write. The study found out that malnourished children suffered irreversible damage. They grew up smaller and weaker, and their brains might not develop fully. The charity said that tackling malnutrition should be a priority for G8 leaders. They will meet in Northern Ireland next month. The report, Food for Thought, is based on studies of thousands of children in Ethiopia, India, Peru and Vietnam. Their study suggests that children aged 8 who are stunted due to malnutrition were 19% more likely to make mistakes reading a simple sentence like "the sun is hot" or "I like dogs" than those with a balanced diet. They could earn as much as 20% less in adulthood, and the global economic impact of malnutrition could be up to $125 billion, Save the Children said.
We now move on to some news in brief from overseas. European Union foreign ministers have said they will not renew an arms embargo on the Syrian opposition due to expire on Saturday. But there was no immediate decision to send arms to Syrian rebels, and all other sanctions remained in force. Even so, Russia said it would directly harm the prospects of an international peace conference on Syria.
Opens the way for Britain and France to go it alone and supply weapons to rebel forces if they...
Local residents in Baghdad's Hariri district prepared to search through scenes of damage and destruction early today, a day after a wave of bombings in markets in Shiite neighborhoods that whipped across the capital. More than 70 people were killed and scores wounded in the blast that indicated a worsening in sectarian violence in the country. No group claimed responsibility for the blast. Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh today hailed Japan's contribution to economic development. Singh arrived in Japan yesterday to hold talks for reinforcing bilateral ties between the two nations. Whilst addressing the business leaders at the luncheon hosted by Nippon Kedoveran in Tokyo, Singh expressed gratitude towards Japan for its assistance.
Japan's contribution to India's economic development.
Chilean authorities ordered yesterday a mandatory evacuation of a 25-kilometer radius around the active Capehue volcano, which straddles the border with Argentina. The volcano, located hundreds of kilometers from the capital Santiago in south-central Chile's bioregion, has seen increasing seismic activity in recent weeks. Police in Panaji city of India's western Goa state arrested 6 bookies in connection with betting during a match of the lucrative Indian Premier League and seized laptops, mobiles and registers containing information related to the transactions yesterday.
कैंडोलिम के इलाके में वहां पे जो
Last rites for Provincial Congress head Nand Kumar Patel and his son were performed with full state honours in India's central state of Chhattisgarh yesterday in the presence of party Vice President Rahul Gandhi. Thousands of supporters of Patel and Congress workers bid farewell due to their leader at his native village in Nandel, where the funeral took place. South Korea has suspended operations at 2 more nuclear reactors over the use of unauthorized parts. The Nuclear Safety and Security Commission also delayed the start of operations at 2 other reactors, but said there was no public safety threat. 2 reactors were suspended in late 2012 amid a scandal over parts with fake safety certificates. The Peking to Paris Vintage Car Challenge kicked off at the Great Wall of China today with 96 cars participating in the race. The vintage cars will drive through 2 continents, lasting a total of 33 days in a journey spanning over 12,000 kilometers. Aside from glory, those first across the finish line are promised a magnum of champagne, race organizers said. Norwegian crime novelist Hans Olav Lahlum and journalist Mads Andersen on Thursday set the world record for the longest television interview. Chatting for more than 30 hours, Lahlum, who rarely paused for more than a few seconds, discussed topics ranging from US presidents to his fictional characters during the online show hosted by VG Net, the online arm of Norwegian tabloid VG.
A very good evening to you. I'm Sharifa Tahir with the latest on sports. The Indian super batsman Sachin Tendulkar has decided not to participate in the future IPL tournaments. He has made this announcement in a special media release. Tendulkar has become popular as a super batsman in the test matches, one-day matches and 2020 matches. He represented the Mumbai Indians team that won the IPL championship in this year's tournament. Due to an injury, he was unable to participate in the last few matches. He has played in 78 IPL tournament matches so far and has scored 2,234 runs. Meanwhile, the New Delhi Police Investigation Unit informs that information about match fixing in the IPL tournament are being received now. They said that information has been received on 12 Indian national players including Srikanth and on the CEO of the Chennai Super Kings team and several others. It is said that there is a conflict even in the Indian Cricket Control Board due to this match fixing. Many cricket fans have demanded for the resignation of the chairman of the Indian Cricket Control Board.
And with that, we end tonight's news. Along with Shanika and Sharifa, this is Faisal Bonzo signing off and reminding you that we'll have more news for you tomorrow night at the same time. Have a wonderful day tomorrow. Good night.